What is the best horror story you can come up with in 2 sentences? Growing up with cats and dogs, I got used to the sounds of scratching at my door while I slept. Now that I live alone, it is much more unsettling. My grandmother told me that it was a gift to see the angel of death in front of people's houses, to know that he'd be collecting someone there soon. I thought it was a gift too, up until the day I began to see it in front of every house. My sister says that mommy killed her. Mommy says that I don't have a sister. I begin tucking him into bed, and he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed." Yesterday, my parents told me I was too old for an imaginary friend, and that I had to let her go. They found her body this morning. Don't be scared of the monsters, just look for them. Look to your left, to your right, under your bed, behind your dresser, in your closet. But never look up. She hates being seen. I can't move, breathe, speak, or hear, and it's so dark all the time. If I knew it would be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead. For years, we heard the little voices and footsteps of the ghost children in our old farmhouse, and we got used to them. Then one day, they went quiet, which should have been our own cue to leave. The doctors told the amputee he might experience a phantom limb from time to time. Nobody prepared him for the moments, though, when he felt cold fingers brush across his phantom hand. I woke up to hear knocking on glass. At first, I thought it was the window until I heard it come from the mirror again. They celebrated the first successful cryogenic freezing. He had no way of letting them know he was still conscious. When I finally grabbed her in the darkness, I swam back to the surface. It never occurred to me how fast the ice could freeze over. The operation wasn't successful in the traditional sense, since my sight didn't return, but it left me with the ability to distinguish heat signatures, at least. 3 weeks have passed, and I'm still not sure how to politely ask my best friend why he's room temperature. "I can't sleep," she whispered, crawling into bed with me. I woke up cold, clutching the dress she was buried in. After so many years living alone in this large house, I came to a startling revelation. In this time, I had closed far more doors than I had open. There was a picture in my phone of me sleeping. I live alone. The last thing I saw was my alarm clock flashing 12:07 before she pushed her long, rotting nails through my chest, her other hand muffling my screams. I sat bolt upright, relieved it was only a dream. But as I saw my alarm clock read 12:06, I heard my closet door creak open. Years ago, a lone chair appeared in the center of the basement, and no matter how many times I put it back in the corner, it always found a way back to the center. It took a long time to realize it was positioned underneath the kitchen, almost like someone had taken a seat at the dinner table with the rest of us. You know that weird, full body twitch you get sometimes when you're falling asleep? If there was a camera pointed at you, and you saw what it captured at that moment, you'd never sleep again. They delivered the mannequins and bubble wrap. From the main room I begin to hear popping. The longer I wore it, the more it grew on me. She had such pretty skin. After struggling desperately to move any part of his paralytic body just to alert the doctors that he was conscious before they made the first incision, he was relieved to see that one of the nurses had noticed his pupils dilating from the bright light. She leaned in close and, in a whisper that tickled his ear, said, "You think we don't know you're awake?" She wondered why she was casting 2 shadows. After all, there was only a single light bulb. "You stupid bastard," I cried, as he tied me to the rails. "Don't you know this line has been abandoned for years?" "Of course I know," he said, walking away. "Oh, one comes here at all. Working the night shift alone tonight. There is a face in the cellar staring at the security camera." I wake up and everything feels wrong. It's too quiet outside. I look out the window and see everyone standing still, looking at my house. It's been watching me for hours now. Sometimes I catch glimpses of its reflection on the computer screen, but I dare not turn around. The grinning face stared at me from the darkness beyond my bedroom window. I live on the 14th floor. He came to my door near sunset and put his cold hand in mine, whispering that he had seen, as he fell to the ground, dead. We still don't know how he got out of the morgue. They say practicing smiling in front of a mirror makes you feel happier. I wish my reflection would join along. Put back the mirrors. We miss watching you. Attending his funeral today was really scary. It might have been the constant muffled screams I heard, or the worry of someone noticing the dirt on my hands. Being buried alive was bad enough. Realizing I wasn't alone in my own grave was worse. Pet shelters close. Beef strangely cheaper. Back against the door, desperately trying to keep the voracious dead out, I looked in the mirror. My reflection raised his hand in goodbye and smiled sadly, never to be needed again. I was having a pleasant dream when what sounded like hammering woke me. After that, I could barely hear the muffled sound of dirt covering the coffin over my own screams. My daughter won't stop crying and screaming in the middle of the night. I visit her grave and ask her to stop, but it doesn't help. She asked why I was breathing so heavily. I wasn't. You get home, tired after a long day's work, and ready for a relaxing night alone. You reach for the light switch, but another hand is already there. I always liked this picture of my great-grandmother. Why does she seem closer to the camera than before? The trains were delayed today. There's something in the tunnels. He even reads over my letters to make sure I spelled everything perfectly, although my capitalization isn't excellent yet. His reputation as the best surgeon in the world is well deserved. In a lesser talent's hands, I would have died weeks ago and escaped his revenge. I ignore the sound of my roommate tapping on the door, asking me to let him in. I ignore it as I watch him sleep on the other side of the room. I never go to sleep, but I keep waking up. I kiss my wife and daughter goodnight before I go to sleep. When I wake up, I'm in a padded room, and the nurses tell me it was just a dream. You start to drift off into a comfortable sleep when you hear your name being whispered, then realize you live alone. The lady with the mangled, bleeding face chased you in the staircase up to the building's roof. You jump off, turn your head to the right, and see her falling next to you. When next you are completely alone, imagine you are listening to a sound of some kind. When that sound seems to stop, you'll know that you've been noticed. My grandfather, who died of Alzheimer's several years ago, refused to let the house lights be turned off at night. The light he offered was the only thing keeping the dark men away. What the little girl doesn't know is that I buried him under the same oak I built her treehouse in. What she does seem to suddenly know are things I've only ever told him. He was huddled in a cave in the middle of the night when a pack of wolves gathered at the entrance. They started howling and snarling, but not at him. I always thought my cat had a staring problem. She always seemed fixated on my face. I always thought my cat had a staring problem. She always seemed fixated on my face. It saw me watching from my window that night, when it visited the neighbors across the way. Now, it visits me. I saw the happiest man with the biggest smile ever buying baby clothes in my shop. A week later, the same man without the smile returned the clothes.